The man isn't even a true believer. He's a gun for hire. And thanks to your overdeveloped trigger finger, we have no idea who hired him or why. And how the hell did you find out where I lived?
Same way I found out your name. I thought M was a randomly assigned letter. I had no idea it stood for...
Utter one more syllable and I'll have you killed. I knew it was too early to promote you.
Well, I understand double O's have a very short life expectancy. So your mistake will be short-lived.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film, explore its themes, its history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. I'm finishing up a couple of jelly beans. This is John Roca. I am a voiceover artist, a host of shows, and actor every once in a while here in Los Angeles, California.
And I am also eating jelly beans, and so there'll be some chewing in this episode. Maybe that's too much information for you.
This is free content for these people. So, like, if we're going to have a couple of jelly beans, excuse us for having a couple of jelly beans because we're doing multiple episodes back to back, and so we just need a little bit of energy boost so we can give you the best show possible.
The Cine-Files, sponsored by Jelly Belly.
I wish.
Wouldn't that be nice?
We'd be so heavy. We'd be so heavy.
Today, we are going to talk about one of the great, possibly the most successful film character series of all time.
Yes.
And that is the James Bond, I think we can call it a reboot, Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 2006.
This is our most recent film.
That we've ever done. We've broken the 2000.
We've broken the 2000s.
Yeah.
And we talked about like what our rule is. Some people have asked, like, well, what's your rule for picking films?
Right.
The top priority for picking films for us is that sounds like fun. You know, movies that we love, movies that we feel like we have something to share. And the one thing we said is we want it to be a movie that's, you know, stood the test of time. So I think a good rule is 10 years. You know, if it's been around for 10 years and we still think it's great, then it stood the test of time. This one came out in 2006.
Yeah.
We're exactly 10 years right now, so we thought it was time to do it. You know, normally I start by asking you how you first came to the film, but I'd like to ask a different question.
Go ahead.
Which is, how did you first come to James Bond? Do you remember your first Bond movie?
So let's talk about that, because I've never been the biggest Bond fan. That's the truth. Like, to me, I always found those films to be a bit weird. And I probably am alienating a number of our male audience members. I apologize. But for me, I never found, and female too, I'm sure. I never found an interest in Bond the way other people did. In fact, I think my first Bond film that I ever watched was A View to a Kill, which is probably one of the worst ones I've ever made.
Do you have good memories of that, though?
I do enjoy, yes, because of the cheesiness of it, and with Christopher Walken and the weirdness of Grace Jones, in my mind, the weirdness at a 16-year-old kid or 15, whenever I saw that. And then Tanya Roberts, I think, is in the film, who's very sexy at the time, coming off Sheena. I think Sheena is the name of the movie that she was in. So these are the kind of things that are available to you as a Bond guy. For me, it was never. I just never had a thing for Sean Connery or anything. But then I saw Goldfinger, and Goldfinger changed everything for me. And it was when I was going through that cinephile phase of watching stuff. So for me, Goldfinger was the one that made me love the character and love the franchise. And then I went back and saw other films, and then which led into enjoying Casino Royale.
So my first Bond film, 1977. Okay. David Selig, my best friend's 9th birthday party. We went to San Francisco to the Coronet Theater, a whole bunch of 9-year-olds,
right, to
see The Spy Who Loved Me.
Oh, nice.
And it was one of the great moments. And the thing to remember, like 1977, it's right before Star Wars came out.
Right.
So there is no Star Wars.
Yeah.
I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And it's where I started this theory that, and it's proven mostly to be not true, but I'm going to tell you what it is anyway, which is that for most guys, their first Bond movie is special.
Yeah.
No matter how terrible it was.
Yeah.
That when you first saw that, first had that experience, it meant something to you. And for me, it was Spy Love Me. For people who are a couple years younger, it was Moonraker, which is a terrible movie.
Yeah.
But they still love it because first time you see Bond, I mean, for me, there was this guy with these metal jaws, and there was an underwater car, and there was cool gadgets, and there was sharks, and there was a villain's lair, and there were nuclear weapons, and it was awesome. It was so awesome, in fact, that I decided for my next birthday I would do the same thing, and I took all the kids that I knew to a double feature of
Diamonds Are Forever? No.
No, there was no Bond movie at the time. So
Oh.
I took them to a double feature of Corvette Summer and Going Coconut starring Donnie and Marie
Oh
Osmond.
my gosh.
My birthday party was not as successful as David Selig's.
What a come down, man.
Even then, I knew that these were not good.
And I think that was Mark Hamill's attempt
Mark
to break
Hamill.
out of the Luke Skywalker
Right after
casting.
Star Wars, yeah. So Bond is, we got, I don't know how many movies. I should have looked it up. 20-something movies.
25, I think, at
Yeah,
least.
it's a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And here's where I'm going to disappoint our Bond fans. Most of them are bad.
Yes, they are.
There are a lot of bad movies. And not only are they bad, but they're kind of the same bad over and over again. And this is one of the dangers of having a serialized character is you have, on the one hand, we want to do a new movie, and on the other hand, we need to fan service essentially all the little things that are supposed to happen in a Bond movie.
Yeah.
He's going to have to say shaken, not stirred. He's going to have to say Bond, James Bond.
Yeah.
He's going to have to go to Q and get some cool gadgets. There's going to be a beautiful woman who's maybe a spy from the other side who we don't trust at first, and then
Right.
we eventually trust. We're going to go to the secret lair. We're going to have an action sequence at the opening that's going to end with him shooting the gun. Then we're going to have the girls in the credit sequence, and we're going to have all the same stuff. And having all the same stuff over and over and over again is not a good way to make a good movie. And I didn't know when I was 9 years old or 10 or 12 or 13 when I watched these movies at the time, but they're pretty stupid.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
That being said,
Yeah.
Casino Royale is a lot of fun. And I thought it's an amazing, I thought it was a great way to reboot the character. And Daniel Craig is even more badass than Sean Connery, more badass than George Lazenby, more badass than Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan.
A lot of people
all
are more
those.
badass than Roger Moore.
I think, well, true. But I think Roger Craig really brought back the authenticity of the violence and ferocity of the Bond character that you see and read in the Ian Fleming novels.
Yeah, well, and that's what I want to go back to.
Yeah.
So have you read the books, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, they're
books
good.
are great.
They're really good.
Yeah.
I recommend you read them. I read them maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I reread Casino Royale because they're short.
Yeah.
I reread it like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And they're gritty and they're good, and they're much closer to the Daniel Craig Bond.
Yes.
The first Casino Royale is the first book. Mm-hmm. It's written in 1953. He wrote it in Jamaica at his house.
Yeah.
His house. The name of his house. Do you know what his name of Ian Fleming's house in Jamaica is? By the way?
No.
Goldeneye. Yeah, there are all these Bond things that kind of
Wow.
come through that really came. Ian Fleming, and this is not bullshit, was really a spy. Like
Yeah.
he was with military intelligence in World War II. I'm sorry, naval intelligence. Quite important there. He established a commando team that were on D-Day that had like full on like James Bond style commando training. He even when going back and forth to the United States was part of setting up the original OSS, which became the CIA, and received a commendation from FDR for this really important memo, my understanding, in terms of how the CIA was going to operate in the future, intelligence community for the United States. So he really was the real deal.
Yeah.
And he wrote Casino Royale right before he was getting married, when, from all speculation, he was just really depressed that his life as a swinging bachelor was going to end.
Right.
And he wrote Casino Royale. It's immediately a pretty big hit. And did you know that this Casino Royale is not the second, but in fact the third filmed version of this story?
I knew it was the second. I thought it was the second because that Orson Welles, Peter Sellers one.
So, and it's really, and this is important to talk about because of how all this happened in terms of Bond. So in 1953, there is a live television Casino Royale.
What? Wow.
In the U.S., an hour-long TV thing. And in it, there is not James Bond, but Jimmy Bond, an American gambler. Okay? And what's important about this is, in addition to that being
we're
bizarre,
so jingoistic in this country. Yes,
well,
right?
it gets worse.
Okay.
So then some guy got the rights to the book. And what happened that's weird, which is why it took us so long to get Casino Royale, is that they sold the rights to the first book, but not the Bond character.
Oh, interesting.
And then when the series of books became a hit, the Bond character and the other books, with the exception of Thunderball, which is another complicated issue, were all sold separately. Wow. Okay? So the dude that owned the books, and I'm not going to remember the names, a Russian guy, and then later partnered up with a big super agent whose name I'm also forgetting at the moment. Anyway, they start working on a Bond script in the 50s. So this is long before we get to Dr. No.
Wow.
And the first choice they made was they go, okay, it's set in Monte Carlo or whatever. There's Vesper, there's Le Chivre, there's all these characters. And the one thing they didn't have in it?
James Bond.
No James Bond. They took out James Bond, and in his place, they put an American gambler named Lucky. This is entirely 100% true. He wasn't a spy. Ugh. There was mob stuff, not spy stuff.
Of course.
And they spent many, many years trying to get this made. First actor who was attached to play Lucky, Gary Cooper.
Whoa!
Yeah. The director but they decided he was too old.
Yeah, you think?
The director they were talking to who wanted to do it, Howard Hawks.
Oh, wow.
So we have a mid-50s Casino Royale with no James Bond, starring an American actor, not Gary Cooper, and directed by Howard Hawks.
God, I'm glad that did not see the light of day.
Right? And then Dr. No comes out, and it's a big hit. And then From Russia with Love comes out, it's an even bigger hit. And by the way, I really like From Russia with Love.
Yes.
Because we got Robert Shaw, and that's a good one.
Yes.
And they go, oh, we got something here. And by this point, the Russian guy who owned the rights had died. And the agent, whose name I've forgotten.
Swifty Lazar.
Yeah, we'll call him. It's not Swifty Lazar. He's a producer, and he has a big success with What's New Pussycat. He produces that, which is where Woody Allen started. And it was this sort of odd, weird British satire. And he said, oh, because now we've had a couple of real Bond movies. He said, let's do a satire. And so he is the guy who produced the John Huston, Woody Allen, David Niven, Orson Welles Casino Royale in the late 60s.
Right.
That is fascinatingly horrible.
Yes. To me, it's unwatchable.
It's
so weird. It's so psychedelically weird. It's unwatchable.
Well, and it's just one of those examples of like old guys trying to be cool. Where you go, guess what? You're not cool. It really wants to be Austin Powers. Is really what it's kind of thinks it's that.
Yeah, this is Frank Sinatra singing Downtown. Which is, you're like,
don't do that. Do what you do.
Do what you do. Yeah, exactly.
And so this is not a recommendation from the Cine-Files, but if you really are a cinephile and you really want a sense of completion, you could. It is a weird movie.
But I remember seeing that on Channel 5 in DC as a kid in the 80s.
Yeah,
and I was
me too. Probably about the same time.
What in the crap is this? And it was so weird. I just didn't know, because I was a Pink Panther fan because of Peter Sellers. Right. So I watched the film thinking it was maybe another version of Pink Panther, and it completely wasn't.
And there are all these talented people.
Yes,
in it.
there are.
Cast of thousands.
Yes.
And again, not really a James Bond in the movie. So then the rights go into La La Land. And the Broccoli's, that's Albert Cubby Broccoli, is the guy who produced all the James Bond movies.
Yeah.
In massive legal fights to control these rights over the years. And they've made every single Bond novel and all sorts of other movies, but no Casino Royale. And it's finally in the late 90s, in a lawsuit with Sony, who ended up with the rights in Colombia, that they finally brought the rights back in. And at this point, we can name some of our Bond guys. You said Sean Connery's our first one. Briefly, George Lazenby, then Roger Moore, which he's the Bond I grew up with.
Okay.
Because that's Spy Who Loved Me and all those.
Time.
Then we get to Timothy Dalton and finally Pierce Brosnan. Right. And Pierce Brosnan was a very successful Bond.
I enjoyed Pierce Brosnan as Bond.
Yeah. And his movies were actually the last movie, which I think is Die Another Day of his.
Yes.
Was the most successful of the Pierce Brosnan. So it's not like he was getting stale.
No.
But the people that were making Bond were getting a little bored.
Yeah.
And they had the Halle Berry character in, I think, Die Another Day.
Yeah, Jazz.
Jinx.
It was a Jinx.
And they go, oh, she's really cool. Let's do a spinoff. So they start to do a Jinx spinoff. They write a script for it. And they write it, and this is just according to what they said. I don't know if this is true. Right. Much realer and edgier. And the writers who had been writing Bond forever went, this is much more fun.
Yeah.
Let's not do Jinx.
Yeah.
So that gets canned. And they'd just gotten to the rights of Casino Royale. And they said, hey, why don't we do Casino Royale, which is Bond's origin story.
Yeah.
And do it in this darker, more realistic tone. But we can't do that with Pierce Brosnan, because he's too old, and we've already established him. We can't do it. So that's how they decide that they're going to reboot.
Wow.
It's not that Pierce Brosnan probably would have done more.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it was successful, but they went, no, let's reboot. And that's how we get to Casino Royale in 2006.
Yeah. Daniel Craig.
With Daniel Craig, who is great.
And he came out of left field.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there were so many other people they were considering at the time. The British actors, American actors, probably doing British accents. There's so many actors they were considering at the time, and no one thought of Daniel Craig. Like, no one had really known him. I mean, you saw him in Road to Perdition, but he played this like mealy-mouthed, weak guy.
He's in Munich.
Yeah, in Munich. Well, yeah, and those things. So you hadn't really seen a lot of it, and then he gets this, and it becomes this huge thing, and he has to kind of learn overnight how to deal with the attention and the press of it all, And so it was from reading numerous interviews with him, it was a heck of a learning curve.
Well, and you could imagine like taking on the mantle of Bond.
Especially when you're not a typically handsome guy. He's a good-looking dude. He's brutally handsome, right? But he's not like Pierce Brosnan or Roger Moore, this easy good, like this John Hamm type vibe to him. He has a harder edge.
No, he has very stone-like facial structures.
Yeah.
He's a very intense look.
I compare it to Uma Thurman. If you separate Uma Thurman's facial features separately, maybe not the most attractive. You put it together, incredibly beautiful. It's the way I
have
look
to
at
go
it.
look at Uma Thurman.
Please do.
Maybe Uma Thurman and Daniel Craig, nice couple.
I don't know. I think she's fine with her billionaire husband.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
So on our next episode of Celebrity Matchmaking, I can't. I mean, it's got to be really weird to be offered one of these gigs. Like you're offered, Harry Potter. You're offered to be the new Captain Kirk. You're offered to be, and this is the first line of my epitaph.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be it for me, and for good or for bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly is the first line of George Lazenby's.
I was going to say, he didn't do much else.
That's it, and so, and you're the guy that was the Bond failure.
Right.
And so that's got to be really, really scary.
And which is so funny because Majesty's Secret Service is a good film.
It's really good.
It's one of the best Bond films that there is. If you're going to do a top 10, so to speak, I put it in my top 10 of Bond films. I really enjoy Majesty's Secret. So it's weird to me that he never came back. He's not your typical Bond,
right.
But he is the correlation to Daniel Craig.
Oh yeah,
the Lazenby Bond is much closer to Daniel Craig than any other Bond that came before or after.
Yeah. So we get to Casino Royale, and it's funny what they did. They really did try to follow the book, but expand it.
Yeah.
So the big opening action sequence, that's not in the book. Like all the kind of the big action set pieces are not in the book, but the basic structure is there.
Right.
And what's interesting with this Bond is, I don't want to say he's a sociopath.
Yeah.
But he's pretty close.
Yes, he has a darkness to him, and we get that right from the beginning in that which is so brilliant, the black and white intro, which initially I remember seeing in the theater thinking, oh, why is MGM and black, what is going on? They need to adjust. And then you see the reason why. Why? Because you're being introduced to this character as a black and white character. He sees things in this way, and there is a ruthlessness to him that we have not seen before in Bond.
Shame. We barely got to know each other. I know where you keep your gun. Suppose that's something. Well, you needn't worry. The second is...
And we go back to what is the actual meaning of 007, according to Ian Fleming, and the meaning of 007 is you are an assassin.
Yeah.
That's what it is that it's not you're a super spy.
Yeah.
It's that you're there to kill people.
Yeah.
And when you get that opening sequence, which I think is the first kind of mainstream introduction of parkour.
Yeah. Oh,
is that you have this guy running through this construction site. We're in the Caribbean, Bahamas, I think. And it's a fantastic action sequence.
Great, which is typical of every Bond movie, right? They open with this fantastic action sequence. Usually, that's why the opening was a little different this way with doing the murder first,
right.
And then you get to the massive action sequence. But you had to introduce a new Bond, and the way you introduce him is to do it that way. It was such a great introduction, and then we get into this awesome action sequence.
And what you see in the way that this Bond goes is it's tenacious and brutal and not quitting and not elegant and stylish like Roger Moore. It's not sophisticated and witty like Pierce Brosnan. It is, this guy literally runs through a wall at one point in the action sequence and is, risking himself in a physical way that we don't see from Bond.
Yeah, there's a way that he runs, that Daniel Craig runs as the character. I don't know if Daniel Craig runs like that in real life, but as the character, it's unrelenting, it's unstoppable, it's pistons just moving forward through. I would correlate it to a jackhammer. It's just going through. There's no stopping it.
And he's a scary guy.
He really is.
He's not like, and I think the only one close is Sean Connery in terms of having a physical intensity.
Yes, sure.
And an internal violence. And one of the things like interesting about where Bond comes from, is that, Bond's created, the idea comes in the late 40s, early 50s. And this is a time when England was on rationing after World War II.
Yes.
And one of the things they talk about early Bond is that it was a aspirational story because Bond is interested in the finest champagne and the finest caviar, and he drives the Rolls Royce. And it's very much, and so was Fleming. Everything we know about Fleming was he loved all of the finest of things, including beautiful women, and was really interested in the gourmetness of it all. And that was a world that didn't exist in post-World War II England.
Yes.
It wasn't there, and that it was hearkening back to this time of empire. And that's one of the important things about Bond's character is he is not an upper class guy, according to Fleming. He's a guy trying to be an upper class guy.
Right.
He is a lower class guy. He's an orphan. He's a tough guy who came up from the streets and is now in a society that's above his level, which when you get to Roger Moore or Pierce Brosnan, that's not what it is, because each of those guys defines themselves. With Sean Connery, you can see that a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with Daniel Craig, it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
This is a tough guy who is in a class above himself right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You sometimes you look at me with these moments of expectation.
Yes, because I'm like, we've closed the chapter on Craig. What are you going to bring up next? That's in my mind. I'm like, yeah, I got nothing to add from what you just about to say.
So we meet Judi Dench playing M, and she's the only character carried through from the Pierce Brosnan,
held over from Brosnan.
And she's great. I mean,
she's fantastic.
She adds such power and such intelligence, and her treatment of
and
Bond,
frustration. Frustration.
Because I mean, in old Bond movies, Bond was always irritating the administration,
right?
In the way our hero irritates the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
This movie, I think, is fundamentally different because she is treated as an intelligent person who really does know what's going on. And Bond is treated as someone making a mistake.
Okay.
I mean, I think you side with M when she dresses him down.
Yes.
Like the choices that he makes to go into this embassy at the beginning action sequence cause a huge, obviously, international incident, make these choices. And she's like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
You've got a bloody cheek.
Sorry. I'll shoot the camera first next time.
Or yourself. You stormed into an embassy. You violated the only absolutely inviolate rule of international relationships. And why? So you could kill a nobody. We wanted to question him, not to kill him. For God's sake, you're supposed to display some kind of judgment.
I did. I thought that one less bomb maker in the world would be a good thing.
Exactly. One bomb maker. We're trying to find out how an entire network of terrorist groups is financed, and you give us one bomb maker. Hardly the big picture, wouldn't you say?
You go, she's right, he's wrong. And that's a great place to start with our character because something I'd like to say about sort of how we approach characters. The basic rule is that your character is supposed to change in a movie.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's some characters that really don't. And that's okay. Like I don't think not every movie is about some character going through a substantial change, particularly a character like James Bond. We don't expect that in every single Bond movie, he is going to be a completely different person by the end of the film.
Right.
You go there to see Bond.
Yeah.
And, but unfortunately that becomes kind of, a crutch as the movies go on because he changes. There's never any changes. Like, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
Daniel Craig in Casino Royale does change.
Yeah.
He is a guy who has to learn important, difficult lessons in the course of the film.
Well, it's the beginning of a trilogy, right? Because you have Quantum of Solace, and then you have Skyfall, and which is the wrapping up of the Vesper Lynd storyline is Skyfall, and then you have it bleed into a little bit of Spectre, but we're introduced to a new romance for him. But through the beginning of this film, this is the film setting up this trilogy, which I didn't know was going to be a trilogy. Like I don't think many people knew that, but it was going to have this. It was going to change Bond from this brutish, frustratingly difficult person under M's control. He's being softened by the relationship with Eva Green as Vesper Lynd, and it really takes the audience in a very, very difficult emotional ride through this film because he lets his guard down, he lets her in, and you see the softer parts of Bond, and she turns on him. And by the way, this is the moment I guess we should say once again, if you haven't seen Casino Royale, please stop right now, go back, watch it, then pick up from here because we're going to spoil the hell out of the movie. It is that relationship that I think stands out for me most out of this entire film. I love Mads Mikkelsen as Chiffre. I love Mads Mikkelsen, period. M is great. The new people are great. Everyone involved is great in the film. But to me, that relationship is so powerful and it's so different from anything we've seen in Bond. And once again, it harkens back to Lazenby.
That's the only
Lazenby
one, yeah.
marries the
Right.
woman, and then she gets killed at the end of Majesty's Secret Service, just like Vesper does at the end of Casino Royale.
And this goes back to this idea of, does a character have to change in the film? And for most of Bond, he doesn't.
He doesn't,
Every
right.
woman he meets,
Yeah.
that he sleeps with,
Yeah.
he has the same emotional connection with.
Mm-hmm.
He likes them. He thinks it's going to be fun to have sex with them,
Right.
and he's never going to think of them again.
Right.
And
Which is reflective of the misogyny of the times.
absolutely. And it's interesting, like why this. At what point does this character cease to be attractive?
Yeah.
You know. I mean, certainly for men, he was treated as this aspirational character.
Sure.
Great cars, beautiful women, tough. You know, all these things.
I'm sure some women really enjoyed that too.
Well, it's, you know, Sean Connery is a sexy man.
He's a good-looking guy.
Yeah. I mean, he was certainly popular in his day.
Yes, he was. I'm sure Roger Moore had his followers before he came out as homosexual. I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of women thought he was very
It's so
attractive
funny
guy.
looking now, the difference between watching a Sean Connery movie Bond and watching a Roger Moore Bond.
Yes.
And Roger Moore, like I said, that was my Bond.
Yeah.
And when you get to a movie like View to a Kill
Yeah.
or Octopussy, or it's just like, ooh, this is weird.
He's doing these extra smirks that are interesting.
Well, that became well, and this is the thing is
which
that
is great, you know.
there's a book on theater called The Empty Space by Peter Brook,
Yes.
famous British director.
Good book.
And one of the chapters he has is called The Deadly Space. And what The Deadly Space is about is basically really the bad theater where people go into a Shakespeare play and they go in expecting a certain thing and they're given the thing they expected,
Right.
even if the thing they expected was to be bored, and then they feel happy at the end because they got what they expected. And that is deadly when it comes to theater, and that's deadly when it comes to Bond.
Yeah.
You know, is that when it's just, here's the moment where Bond seduces the girl, here's the moment where he has the one-liner, and you're waiting for it, and it gives it to you, and you go, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. And at some point, though, and this is what relates back to what you said earlier, Steve, they had gotten a little stale with Pierce. Pierce was doing all of that. You know, they gave him somewhat of a love interest in Tomorrow Never Dies with, I mean, The World Is Not Enough with the French actress Sophia Marceau. They gave
Right,
him a
sure.
little bit of a love interest in the possibilities of it, right?
But they
You
always
see-
do. They give her, in Tomorrow Never Dies, it's with
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh.
I guess you're right.
That's the Bond thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're going to meet this person. They're going to have a
Right.
conflict at the beginning. Then they have to work together.
Yeah.
Then they're going to have sex, and then we go to the next movie. And
Yeah,
they're
that's true.
gone.
Happened with Denise Richards as World Is Not Enough as well, right?
It's what
You're right.
happens in The Spy Who Loved Me. It's what
Right.
happens in every one of these movies.
So I guess my point is that they wanted to react to what had been growing in the pop culture was this kind of pushback against Bond. The writers in pop culture were on the internet initially, and then also in newspapers. There were starting to come out these editorials that were like, "Is he a dinosaur? Is he a fossil? Is the
Right.
misogynistic nature of Bond? Does that work for nowadays?" And what they smartly did was they went to an origin story with Casino Royale, and they gave him a love interest. He still
real
has
one.
the sex with the woman near the beginning of the film when he's trying to get the information about ellipsis, but there is more to him than that, and Vesper really brings that out.
Well, they give him the misogynistic, I'm just interested in this sexy
Right.
woman. That's very classic Bond.
Right.
But then you get Eva Green, you get Vesper,
Yeah.
and he falls in love.
because
He
she's as
falls
good
for her.
She is his equal in every way, shape, and form.
All right. By the cut of your suit, you went to Oxford or wherever. Naturally think human beings dress like that. But you wear it with such disdain. My guess is you didn't come from money, and your school friends never let you forget it. Which means you were at that school by the grace of someone else's charity, hence the chip on your shoulder. And since your first thought about me ran to orphan, that's what I'd say you are. Well, you are. I like this poker thing. And that makes perfect sense. Since MI6 looks for maladjusted young men who give little thought to sacrificing others in order to protect queen and country. You know, former SAS types with easy smiles and expensive watches. Rolex?
Amiga.
Beautiful. Now, having just met you, I wouldn't go as far as calling you a cold-hearted bastard.
No, of course not.
But it wouldn't be a stretch to imagine you think of women as disposable pleasures rather than meaningful pursuits. So as charming as you are, Mr. Bond, I will be keeping my eye on our government's money and off your perfectly formed house.
You noticed.
Even accountants have imagination.
I want to talk about poker.
Yes, please.
So originally in the book it's baccarat,
Yes,
and we
baccarat.
now update it because it's poker. And
Yes.
and they do Texas Hold'em, and that's very popular, and I understand why. This is just a personal thing. So the very first screenplay I tried to write, I had a poker scene.
Yes.
And I realized then it's really hard to write a poker scene.
Yes.
And hard to film it. And the reason is because you have to know what every single person has in their hand, what every single person has bet, what exactly the big blind and the little blind and who's bluffing and who's not. And then all the dialogue is determined by whose turn it is to bet.
Right.
And so what happened is like I want that guy to say something now. I'm going to have to move his seat one to the left so he could say something earlier. Oh, but now I have to change what the bets are. And now you have to write down a chart of how much money is in the pot and who has how much. It's really hard just technically to figure it out. And then it's hard filming for the same reason that 12 Angry Men is hard filming because you have all this stuff with eyeline.
Yeah.
And so they had to work out a really complicated poker scene. And by the way, most of the people didn't play. And so the producer taught everyone how to play poker. And apparently there are a lot of behind the scenes poker games going on the whole time they're filming it.
Of course.
Because all that drama is happening in the poker game.
Yeah.
You know, and the first thing that happens is that Bond loses. He thinks this guy has a tell, but he really doesn't have a tell.
Right.
Or he does have a tell, but maybe what's his name? Mathis told Le Chiffre about the tell, and they con Bond, and he's lost everything, only to get rescued by the CIA, by Felix Leiter. They're really, really good poker sequences, which, by the way, if you read the book, that's 60% of the book.
Wow.
It's just the baccarat. It's just the card game. Because they don't have the heart attack. They don't have the opening parkour. Obviously, there's no parkour there. They don't have that sequence. They do have the car chase.
Okay.
And the ending is much less dramatic in the book. I love that scene where he's dying and has to give himself.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
It's so well done, Steve.
Yeah,
because he's like fumbling in the glove compartment, trying to get everything squared away, and he's like, you can feel this.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, great performance of Daniel Craig. And then there's a moment that I think I won't say it's the key moment in the whole film, but it's really important.
Vodka martini.
Shaken or stirred?
Do I look like I give a damn?
Why do you think I'm saying that's really important?
Well, I think because it's basically saying this is a whole new Bond, and the tropes and the cliches of the previous Bonds will not be in this Bond, and you can enjoy him again.
Let's free ourselves from all those cliches.
Yep.
And of course they do introduce all of them later on in the subsequent movies.
Yeah.
But at least we go, no, this is a new guy. We don't have to do all that stuff.
Yep.
It's not going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until, like, for instance, he says James Bond, that's the end of the movie. That is the last line of the movie, I think.
Yep.
Is that's really, that's where he says, okay, now we're in. Now you're going to be James Bond.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Mads Mikkelsen, or what do you want to jump into next?
Sure, Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah, Le Chiffre. What an interesting. Now you've read it, so I haven't read Casino Royale. I read a few of the other Bond books, but not Casino Royale. Does he have the eye bleed, or is
bleeds
that
in it?
Oh
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's so great. So you see that. I think I'd never seen Mads Mikkelsen in anything until I saw this movie, and rewatching it again for the podcast, you see he's still as powerful now, because I just saw Doctor Strange a few days ago. So
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, yeah. I was happy to see him as a mainstream villain in another film. Like, the man needs to work more than he does. He needs to be part of things more than he does, more than he is, because he's such a good actor, man.
He's great.
I saw him in Valhalla Rising. I've seen him in a number of some Western he was in a couple of years ago, which was really great. He's such a good actor, and I think he shines so well in this movie. And you had to give him somebody that you felt could go toe-to-toe with Daniel Craig and the ferocity of Craig's portrayal.
Well, and a great lesson for him, don't do too much. He doesn't do much.
He really doesn't.
He has a great look.
Yes.
They have a great, like, scar. Mm-hmm. You have the great eye thing.
Yeah.
And he is almost silent through most of the film.
He speaks under everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's just a really scary villain. And what's interesting, and this is true in Casino Royale, what's interesting about him is he's not important as a bad guy.
Right.
Is that he's not an underling, he's a middle bad guy.
Yes.
And that and this is just exactly what you should never do in a movie that works so great is killing your bad guy 20 minutes before your movie's over.
Yeah.
That's really strange.
Yeah.
And it really is unsettling. And it means that once he dies, and Bond doesn't kill him.
Yeah.
Bond's completely helpless when he dies.
Yeah.
He gets killed by somebody else. Once he dies, the movie is now open.
Yeah.
You know, when you watch a movie and you know what kind of movie you're watching and you know what time it is. Okay, the movie I've been an hour and 10 minutes in. This movie is this long, so we're gonna have another action sequence and then we got to kill the guy. Now I know the movie's over.
Yeah.
That guy dies, and you got 20 more minutes. You have no idea what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
What's the movie about?
Right.
Our bad guy's dead.
Yeah.
And the answer is the movie is because the real story is the Bond story. It's not the Le Chiffre story. It's the Bond story, and we still have to continue exploring it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's great. He's a really good villain.
Yeah, and I like the movements that he has in the movie. The progression of feeling the power of it, and then because he's introduced through like the whole sequence with Mr. White and the stuff in Africa and all this, we see him progress through the movie on the ship. You know, this guy who's on the boat, rather, this guy who's in power and in command of his world. And here comes Bond, and he does what he does, and he has to fight Bond with every possible weapon at his disposal, both physically and emotionally. You know, and I think that's you had to have the right actor who could pull that off, and Mads really does all the way up until the end. And I think what's also great is that you have this other balance, this counterbalance with Jeffrey Wright as this American character who is so good in everything he does.
Yeah, he's great.
You know.
Yeah, he's one of those actors who doesn't seem like he's acting. No. This is the guy that's in this thing, and that's Felix Leiter. Okay, yeah he's great. Yeah. So let's talk about torture.
Okay.
So this is it's directly out of the book. The knock the bottom out of a rattan chair, strap a naked guy to this chair, and beat him with a rope's end. Mm-hmm. It is right out of Ian Fleming in the book. It is a brutal scene.
But it's so
visceral.
God, yes. As a man, it's incredibly visceral and Daniel Craig does such a great job. I mean, listen, people, you need to understand something. As an actor, to convey torture in a way that is believable, and what he's doing in that sequence, the strength that he is showing at the same time that he is exposing himself to the lunacy of the situation. How he ended up having his balls whacked by this incredibly thick robe through a wicker chair is insane to conceive of the pain. Yeah. But the laughing is the mania, is the nuttiness of it all that he allows himself, and which I thought was brilliant for the director and for Daniel Craig to dial into and really lean into during that scene, because it allows you to not lose your faith in his strength, which I think was so well done.
Now the whole world's gonna know that you died scratching my balls. Well, I died. Yes. Because no matter what you do, I'm not gonna give you the password, which means your clients are gonna hunt you down and cut you into little pieces of meat while you're still breathing.
Yeah. Well, he is such a powerful dude.
Yeah.
Physically and in terms of his, screen charisma, his screen persona.
Yeah.
He is so powerful. And that scene, man, it hurts.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell all the guys listening that when you see a thing like that on screen, you feel it a little bit.
Yes,
a little bit. And it's a really brutal, difficult scene. And he does not get up after the torture and fight the bad guys.
Yeah.
It's not one of those, because in other Bonds he would have.
Yeah.
He would have shrugged it off and just we would never discuss it again. In fact, he's in the hospital for a long time dealing with this.
Yeah. Which is ballsy to do that in a Bond film. To put your hero in the hospital, so to speak. Yeah. To put your hero in the hospital where he's inactive.
Yeah.
He's inactive, and Ava has to come and take care of him, and he resists it, of course, because he's the one that should be the man in the situation. That's why I like the film so much, dude. It really turns the convention of James Bond around. It makes it interesting, relatable, and believable, and it really pushes the boundaries of we as an audience in 2006 were willing and open to accept in our Bond, in our new Bond.
Well, and that's part of why she becomes an actual love.
Yeah,
is that he, in every other Bond thing with a woman, he always has the power.
Yes,
and in this sequence, he doesn't have the power. He's vulnerable, and she comes to him.
Love is tough, man. That's when you know. That's
Got
when
that
you know.
right, brother.
That's right. When you're vulnerable is when you know you're in love, man. It's when you're beginning the process of in love. Because when you feel strong in any situations, you handle it, come and go, whatever. But it's when you start to have that vulnerability is when you know you're falling, and you can see that happening with him in the hospital sequence. Yeah.
Well, and this is something we talked about, in Die Hard.
Yeah.
The difference between Die Hard and an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie is that John McClane is vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that if you want to show courage, you must show fear.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to show overcoming an obstacle, you have to show the pain of that obstacle.
Yeah.
Daniel Craig is vulnerable.
Yeah.
Roger Moore was never vulnerable. And I'm not knocking it. It's just a totally different kind of movie.
Yes, agreed.
You know, there is fun seeing the guy that's never bothered by anything. That's fun.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're seeing here. You know,
Yeah.
you're seeing a guy that's flawed, that's struggling, has incredible physical powers and tenacity and intelligence and all these great skills.
Yeah.
But inside of it is a really vulnerable, angry guy. And that's what makes this movie much more interesting than
Yeah.
the previous Bonds.
Absolutely.
And then they also have probably the most vulnerable scene I can think of in a Bond movie, except for maybe some scenes in Skyfall, but where she's in the shower.
Yeah.
And he has to come and comfort her.
Yes.
That's like, oh, we're actually having some real emotions. I mean, you don't think of real emotions
Yeah.
being moved as a thing that you're going to get in a Bond film, and here you do a little bit.
Yeah, the shower scene, absolutely, Steve. And I think also when she dies in the water in the elevator.
Oh, it's brutal.
The fact that she won't let him save her.
Yeah.
She won't let him. Brother, I get emotional every time because that frustration that you feel like, no, just let me. And she won't.
I think
It's
that
powerful.
last sequence is amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's a great action sequence. It's really inventive.
Yeah.
It's really emotional because his emotions are complex.
Yes, they are. And they're brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like I had to save the girl I love.
No.
That's not the emotions.
No.
This is the girl that betrayed me.
Yeah.
Who I love.
Yes.
Who I'm angry with, who I hate, who is dying, who is sacrificing herself and betrayed me all at the same time.
Right.
That's complicated.
I think he is trying to save her. I don't think he is trying.
Oh, he's trying to
right,
save her.
Right, but there is that absolutely. There is that ferocity of the betrayal and because he doesn't know the full truth. And when he gets the full truth on the boat later from M, it's just so powerful, man.
Yeah.
And he goes back to, and we see this is why Bond is the way he is with every woman he encounters.
Right.
There is this. He is in love with Vesper, and he'll always be in love with Vesper. No one else can match
but
it.
that's not what he says at the end. I mean, I think
Right,
it's true.
right.
Because you remember what the last line of the movie is?
No.
So it's the last line that he says to M
Yeah.
is the same as the last line of the book, which is, the bitch is dead.
Yeah. But he doesn't mean it.
Well, but that's why it's a great line.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's a great line in the book. They made sure that it was in the, because it is a brutal line.
It is a brutal
and
line.
I can see being really scared of putting that line in a Bond movie. The bitch is dead. That's a hard shell covering up a lot of real pain.
Right.
You
But
know?
what I think is brilliant that they do, Steve, is they show him saying it when they could have shown M listening to it over
Yeah.
the phone instead, but they show him saying it because they know as an audience, they know they directed it, or whoever. The direction was to have him play it with a slight hint of vulnerability because you have to believe he doesn't mean what he's saying.
Yeah,
he's saying it just to.
But there's also this thing of him. He's now becoming Bond because at the beginning he was a character that M couldn't quite trust.
Yes.
he was dangerous, not really in control, and letting his emotions take him, but still somewhat sociopathic.
Yeah.
And now at the end, he's become what M wants him to become.
Yeah.
And that's pretty insidious and dark in a way that doesn't exist in other Bond movies.
I agree. What is your feeling about the progression of the story in the movie? Because Casino Royale isn't that one of the shortest books in the?
It's a short book.
Yeah. So
I mean, I listened to it. It was 4-hour long audiobook, which means it's, I don't know how many pages, like 200 pages.
Yeah.
It's short.
Yeah. So when you're watching the movie yourself, do you feel the progression of what happened, the stakes getting raised, everything? Do you feel that they connect to each other and the pacing of the film? As a filmmaker, does it work for you?
So I'll tell you what my feeling was. Is that so when I saw it in the theater, and I saw it in the theater, and I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And I think I'd seen it once or maybe twice since then before watching it a couple of nights ago. I had to be honest, I didn't like it quite as much as I expected to.
Okay.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think it's a great film.
Okay.
You know, I think it's Martin Campbell's the director.
Yes.
Who is fine. He did Goldeneye.
Right.
There's another movie he did that I'm drawing a blank on. It's fine. I think what elevates the movie is Daniel Craig and the reconception of James Bond.
Yeah.
That's what makes it great. Do I think it's like if I had
And,
never
and I would say Eva Green too.
She's really good. She's really good. So in the sense of, this is establishing the new Bond as a new origin story. You know what I would compare it to in a weird way is Batman Begins.
Oh yeah.
And the reason is, so I think Dark Knight, which hopefully we'll talk about at some point.
Yes,
that
we
is
have
a
to.
fantastic movie.
We will talk about that.
Having rewatched Batman Begins fairly recently, I went, It's really good.
Yeah.
It's not great.
It's not great.
What's really good about it is the new conception of Batman.
Yes.
Is that they have rejected this stuff of the past. They've made a really strong statement about this is who Batman is in this world, and they did a great job. Is the movie great? It's not great.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And that's actually pretty close to how I feel about Casino Royale. The reintroduction of Bond is great.
Yeah, Batman Begins, it's the director, the actor, and the score.
Yeah.
That's what what you're saying is the reconception of Batman. Those three combine to reconceive Batman and make that movie better than it should be.
Right.
And so I agree with you. And I think with this, you're probably rewatching it. I found some holes in the plot that didn't appear to me in 2006. But now looking back as I see it, I was like, oh, who wouldn't have seen him ram the car on a security camera in the country club parking lot? Wouldn't see this guy getting out in a white shirt and shades and go find him.
Sure.
Like, what woman is giving, what front desk receptionist is giving away information of where this guy's house is so that he can case it? Like those kinds of things. You're just like, you know what I'm saying? A little bit
too easy.
Yeah, a little too easy.
Yeah.
But the film overall is so powerful that those small things don't take away from it, but they do put holes in it that I didn't see before.
Well, and what's interesting, there is a certain suspension of disbelief you have to have with Bond.
Yes, true.
Which is you have to go, because we don't have 9, cars driving through buildings and explosions and things and not have those things like really investigating.
Yeah,
you know
it's true. It's true.
You know what I mean? Those things and I think in previous Bonds where it's Roger Moore or Pierce Brosnan or whoever, that was a fantasy world.
Yes.
And so it sort of seemed like, oh, this is just this world in which these crazy, crazy things happen.
Right.
When you make Bond more realistic in Daniel Craig, the things that are sort of crazy stand out more.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's just sort of like, wait, this can't be happening the way this is happening. Really?
Yeah.
Like whatever he did in that country at the beginning of the movie where he's chasing that guy through a construction site and a huge explosion. It's like, well, or the airport. I mean, the airport one is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like, well, that's an international incident and that, cameras on him everywhere. He would be on every single newspaper, TV. Here's this crazy guy that destroyed this airport.
Yeah.
From that point forward. But you kind of go, oh, it's Bond.
That's right. It's Bond. I'll accept it.
Yeah.
But then that's the thing that you come back to more and more in the film. It's the personality of Daniel Craig, the portrayal that he does that really gets you through the movie and through the kind of like kind of parts, you know what I'm saying? And that's how you can get away with it. When you have the right actor and you have the right character, you can get away with those moments so much more. I think Skyfall is the greatest Bond film ever made.
I agree.
It's the one. It's the one with the most cohesive plot that is the most difficult to deconstruct or to
has real emotions.
Real emotions in it, all of it, and
beautifully shot.
Yes. Incredibly shot, well
it's
shot.
Roger Deakins, isn't it?
Yeah, Roger Deakins. Just that sequence alone when he is doing the shooting on the rooftop and at night beautiful. With it's in the fight. It's just great stuff. But with Casino Royale is a more vibrant film. The colors are more rich. The it's more brighter. The shots outside by the water. The shots when he's at the country club. The shots when he is convalescing. The shots even when they're in Italy when she dies. It's beautiful all shot. Very vibrant and beautiful. Skyfall is pristine, and Solace is dirty. And those are those different kind of sequences that you see, or different kind of versions of Bond that you see. And the reason I enjoy Casino so much is because it has that vibrancy, which is helped by Daniel Craig's portrayal. And, him coming out in the light blue shorts, it could have been any other color, but light blue is a vibrant color. It just makes sense.
And let's be real clear. He looks good.
He does.
He looks coming out of that water.
Yeah.
It obviously is a reference to Ursula Andress in Dr. No.
Yes,
which
true.
is referenced by Halle Berry in her
Die Another Day.
Die Another Day. And now, and I think that's a key point. Is like we spent 40 years objectifying women in this thing.
That's right.
Now we're going to objectify this dude.
Which is ironic because women were already objectifying Bond by watching that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah, but
he is
I
an
get
object
that they leaned
character.
into
He was
right,
never.
exactly.
I mean, but it definitely as a physical specimen.
Yeah.
He is an impressive dude.
He really is, dude.
Yeah, he looks great.
Yeah, and that's what helps with his fight sequences, which are so well done. And
Beautifully done.
I think you bring up Batman Begins, Steve, and that's a great correlative film, because it's a new fighting style that Christian Bale is being taught and used in Batman Begins. It's Casey, right? And it's all elbows and knees, right? There's more. It's because it's in close fighting.
Right.
And we'd seen the Bourne movies by this point. I think the first Bourne movie had come out by this point, and so we needed a Bond that was a little more
before this. Yeah,
we needed a Bond that was a little more dirty, a little more gritty, and so you had to have these more violent fights, more protracted fights.
And he takes a beating.
He really does.
And he fights great. So you have two things. One is it's a great, as you say, brutal fighting style.
Yeah.
Real in close, real fighting style.
Yeah.
And Bond gets hit in a way that, Timothy Dalton didn't get hit like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's really a fighter. He's a brawler, a scrapper. And let's talk a little bit about something we should talk about here is second unit directing.
Okay.
Which is so second unit is frequently for stunts, for exteriors. The first unit is we're doing scenes where the actors are talking to each other and playing stuff. And the second unit might go out and shoot these big action sequences, big set pieces. And Bond has a history of some of the great second unit directors of all time, including one whose name I don't remember, who became a director. It's not usually a thing that happens. Stunt coordinators becoming a director, a second unit director becoming a director. And one of the things they really wanted to do with Casino Royale, which they really kept up, I think, in the Bond movies since, is real stunts.
Yeah.
Which is a thing which, as CG has gotten better and better, that more and more stunts are not real.
Yeah.
They're not real people doing real stuff.
Yeah.
And the big example of this not being true in the last few years is Mad Max, is Fury Road. That's real people doing real stuff.
Yeah.
And
such a good movie.
It's a really good movie. The coordination, the logistics, the science, the skills, and the bravery to have people doing these things is something we don't talk enough about in film.
Agreed.
I firmly believe there are 2 Oscars that are not given. One Oscar is for casting.
Biased. Yes, go ahead.
For my wife. But I really firmly believe it is an unsung job.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, we don't talk about it. We never talked about a movie where we didn't talk about how great the casting was.
That's absolutely true.
And there's actually people who do that job.
Yes.
And the other one is stunts. I think there should be a best stunt or a best stunt coordination Oscar.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have movies that are, huge tentpole action films, and half the movie is people going, wow, did you see when this guy did this thing?
Right.
And those people actually could die. I mean, this isn't like, someone gives a great performance crying in a film. That's awesome, but they are not really risking their lives.
Right.
Whereas somebody falling flaming off of a building or going through an explosion or hanging from a thing, they're actually risking their lives. And that deserves recognition. And I think that people don't understand, like, for instance, they don't understand the science.
Yeah.
That they're calculating exactly how big that explosion is, or exactly how high this fall is going to be, or how fast this car needs to be going at 32.6 miles per hour when it hits this curb in order to roll in this way, because you have people in one direction, you have another car over there. It has to be done with such precision. And this movie has an unbelievable stunts, unbelievable action sequences.
Absolutely, and they're the things that, like, whereas for me, and I'll go a bit off script here. Batman versus Superman. I thought the problem with that film is that the action sequence, there's like an hour of talking before there's any action sequences, hour of unnecessary stuff going on before there's action sequences. The action sequences are great, but there's all this other stuff.
I don't think they're great. I think they're okay.
Fine. I like them. I think they're good, but I have a problem with all this dead time of talking that doesn't really lead you to the action sequences. That is a way that lets you appreciate the action sequences. Whereas with Casino Royale, I think there is. I think everything that leads up to an action sequence is like what I would call, I guess, like a Jenga thing, like you're building it on top, or like a pyramid, you're building it on top to the top, and that's it's self-enclosed in that way, and that's what I enjoy about those action sequences. They're led to finish the thing and then move on to, like, the end of the African sequence, pulls out the phone, ellipsis, what's next? Woman, black frame, woman coming out of the water, so you're relaxed into a whole new thing of talking leading up to the next action sequence. You know? It's all of that.
Well, they have to be, action sequences have to be part of the film.
Yes.
And all the requirements of inventiveness, rhythm, spectacle, camera movement, performance, storytelling that you would have in any other element of your film need to be in the action sequences. Like when he's chasing that guy, I think that opening sequence, the opening action sequence and the closing action sequence are my favorites in the film by far. And when he's chasing that guy, you see every little bit of thought process. And you get to see a guy who moves really great, which is so fun. He's one of the founders, I believe, of parkour in France.
He's French,
and then you get to see Bond's way of getting through all those things, which is always interesting. And you get to see how they fight and what choices they're making and and you see Bond's intelligence throughout. I mean, that's what makes a good action sequence. It's not just spectacle. It's not just big.
And stakes.
And
the stakes of what's happening for you to get through that action sequence. What you have to get to, what you're trying to find. Like, we don't know initially what he's trying to get in that opening action sequence, but we know we've already been dialed into him from that opening scene in black and white. He's our Bond. We're following him. Awesome intro. Boom. He must be trying to get something. That idiot agent gets himself killed, and he has to go and find this thing. Everything explodes. It's ferocious. The concrete, the holding the guy, shooting the prime minister or whoever the representative that's there. All that stuff that happens is great. The stakes are where they're at. It's when he grabs the phone that we understand the stakes afterwards. But every other
Honestly,
action sequence,
I still don't understand. Like, if you had said, Steve, explain exactly the plot and what the bad guys were trying to do and what Bond was doing to stop them, I still don't know I could do it. I know there was like a plane
in the opening sequence.
Well, yeah, I mean the whole thing, the whole movie,
the whole movie.
I know
Ellipsis.
Oh yeah, okay. What is ellipsis?
Well, that's what it's what Chiffre was involved in, and it leads into the second movie and the third movie, and then eventually at the end of Spectre, the fourth movie. So it all connects in that way.
Oh sure, but I don't understand it in watching the movie because I don't think that's what it's like. We're trying to get Le Chiffre. I get that.
Yeah.
And we're chasing that guy
because they're setting off bombs.
Because he has a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're setting off bombs, but it's still
they're killing people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
It's a global thing. There's arms dealing, all this kind of stuff. That's what he's trying to stop.
I've heard of these things. I'm just saying. That. What my point is that you all it really is Bond's trying to get that guy, and I go, okay,
yeah.
Like, I don't have to understand exactly what that guy's trying to do,
right,
or why they're trying to do it. Or
they're pieces in a puzzle. They're connected.
Sure,
as he's moving up the chain of where he's trying to get to.
I know. I do get that, and I get that Le Chiffre needs the money from the plane that's going to help him because he's, and I kind of get it. But the only point I'm trying to make is that it's not important.
Right. Okay.
Is that the mechanism of exactly what's happening?
Right.
We don't really need to care about. We know Bond wants to get that guy. We know we have to beat that guy at poker. We know that guy's the bad guy and connected to other bad guys.
Yeah.
That's all I really need to know.
Do you like the way Le Chiffre is killed?
It's just what's in the book.
Yeah.
I love the shot.
Yes.
Where he falls into it with the with the bullet.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, as I said before, it's shocking because our bad guy's dead and we've got 20 more minutes of movie.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very relatable to To Live and Die in L.A. when they kill off the main protagonist 20 minutes before the movie's over. And you're like, wait, I'm following the best friend now? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. Those are shocking and really ballsy moments, but it works because of the relationship between him and Eva Green, which carries you through the next part of the movie to where he uses a nail gun better than anything since Lethal Weapon 2.
Yeah. We're going to have to do our list of best nail gun sequences.
Lethal Weapon 2 is definitely in top 3 or 4. That's awesome. Nailed him.
I don't think we need to have a top 10 nail gun climaxes.
I don't think there are 10.
There are a few. All right, John.
Yes.
Final thoughts on Casino Royale.
Oh, such a fantastic film. It was great to sink back into the film after so long. I own it on Blu-ray, but I hadn't watched it in a long time. So it was nice to sink back into the film and do a little bit of research for it and enjoy it. I would say if you haven't seen it and you're listening to us, thank you for listening, but definitely go back and watch it. And you might find holes in the film, but you'll fall back in love with Daniel Craig as James Bond. I think that's what Casino Royale does really, really well. And you'll appreciate Eva Green 10 years ago. Yeah. Like, everyone's talking about her now. 10 years ago, she was just as powerful as an actress, coming off of Bertolucci's Dreamers. She was really good. She's still a fantastic. If you've seen Penny Dreadful, she's so great in that's all 3 seasons. She's a fantastic actress, and she needs to be used more. And Miss Peregrine was fun, and so she's good in those kinds of things. So to me, it's great to go back and revisit that. And Judi Dench's M is so fantastic too.
Oh, she's always great.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Bond. I love him for that childhood moment of watching The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah.
And I loved watching every single Bond. I've seen them all. And I love the ideas of Bond, and I love the intelligence of Bond, and I love, like, I think in my mind, there's the platonic ideal of James Bond.
Yes.
And I think as I've grown older, more and more the reality has come up wanting.
Yes.
And most of the time
interesting.
going to those movies, going to a Timothy Dalton one, going to a Pierce Brosnan one, I would have moments of watching the movie going, wow, and then walk out sad and disappointed, because the truth is you don't ever get to be 9 years old and experience that the way with those kind of eyes. You don't get to do that again. And I think this movie and this and Skyfall to me are ones where, man, it gets pretty close. And you get to, because as soon as that movie starts, you go, oh, all of the old Bond stuff is gone. Is that you have these moments where it's like, oh, we're starting over. And maybe I can see the movie with fresh eyes. Maybe I can not be a kid again exactly, but experience new Bond in a new way. And this is the thing that is that as a filmmaker, you got to do stuff new.
Yes.
If you're trying to rehash the old stuff, you're just being a stale copy of a copy.
Yes.
You got to do things new. And having Daniel Craig come in and saying we're going to be more realistic. He's going to have some emotions. He's going to make some mistakes. Suddenly the movie is fresh, and I do definitely like that.
And we can relate to that. We can connect to that as human beings going through our own lives, trying to achieve what we're trying to achieve with our mistakes and our successes.
And I think, too, it goes to, we said this before on the Cine-Files, is our job is not to just put all movies on the same scale. What you go to a Bond movie for is not the same as what you go to, Terms of Endearment for.
Right.
Or what you go to Apocalypse Now for, or what you go to Citizen Kane for.
Sure.
These are different experiences. And it's good to hear Bond movies coming out. They get that kid-like excitement and get to go see it. It's pretty exciting.
I think that's why I defend Spectre, because I know
you
a lot
like that much more than me.
I know a lot of people. I thought it was a great a marriage of old school Bond and new Bond, and I really enjoyed that. And I think it was a great way for Daniel Craig to say goodbye to the role. And so I enjoyed it, me personally, as a historian now of the Bond films, because I went back and watched almost all of them for the top 10 show when we did our top 10 Bond films. I like that it's what it did, but I understand people's not liking that film.
When you watched all of them, because I watched all of them because I worked on the DVDs.
Yes.
So I watched all of them 15 years ago or something. Did it hurt?
Yes. Some of them are really utterly unwatchable, like just bad, like cheesy bad. And some of the sequences, even in the good ones, are not great. Like From Russia with Love, that sequence when they're going up and watching the guys in the around the table, and the angle that they can't see who the Russian guy is in the general outfit, in the general's outfit, all that kind of stuff. You're like, ooh, but that's a product of its time. So you have to have a little more understanding about it. But I still enjoyed going back to seeing what they were trying to do with the character, because obviously there were enough of the films that resonate with enough audiences that generations upon generations love this character of James Bond.
Yeah. I mean, we're now 60 plus years after he was created, and we're still kind of interested, and the world is completely different. Like the Cold War is over, where the whole nature of the world is different. England is different, Great Britain is different, the United States is different, our sense of technology is different, and yet we still kind of like this guy James Bond. He's still interesting.
He's our 6th iteration, I think, right? If I'm correct,
And well, if you don't count Jimmy Bond, 1950
or Lucky
TV show, or Lucky, or Orson Welles and Woody Allen.
I'm not going to count any of those Bonds.
And I'm curious now, who's the next Bond going to be? What are we going to do?
Who do you want? Like, can we end the podcast by asking?
I don't know if I have an opinion. I mean, I've heard the what's his name?
Idris Elba.
That's great. He's a great actor.
Yeah, I would love to have Idris Elba.
That'd be cool.
A black Bond would be awesome.
Sure.
I mean, all these people screaming about, oh, he's Scottish, he's whatever. Kiss my ass. He's whatever.
Cast a great actor.
Hiddleston would be great too. I would love to see a Hiddleston version of Bond, but I think there's someone out there that no one's talking about that they can find, like Daniel Craig. They found him in the smaller bit parts, and to see what he could do with it.
Barbara Broccoli, and I forget the other producer's name.
Albert.
Well, Albert's dead.
Oh, right.
Barbara's running it now, and who's his daughter.
Okay.
And I forget the other main producer. Those are smart people.
Yeah, they are.
And whatever you say about whether or not all these movies are good, there's a lot of talent working there. So I bet I have kind of some faith they'll find someone good.
Would you want to see a final, like an older Bond, one last episode of Pierce Brosnan as Bond, like an older Bond? Would you be up for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so would I. I mean, if they gave Connery a Never Say Never Again type thing, I think they can give Pierce that, because Pierce brought people back into the Bond fold, and I think he deserves one last send-off film. Me personally.
Well, I like
as a standalone.
I like the idea of old Bond.
Yeah.
I mean, like one of my first comic book jobs that never came out was writing the final adventure of Conan the Barbarian. I wrote it.
Wow.
12-part.
What?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, and it never came out. It was for all sorts of reasons, but like old man Conan on his last quest. That was the idea.
Steve Morris, I would like to petition you for us to get Dan Panosian on the show to talk Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, we definitely should have Dan come on to talk.
That film is a classic. I don't care what anyone says. That film is a classic.
Yeah, and I saw like the idea of the old, like just like Dark Knight. Dark Knight Returns.
Yes.
Frank Miller, old Batman. I love that. So you want to do old Bond? If the Broccolis will call me, Steve Morris, you can reach me on Twitter at SRMorris. I will write the old Bond script. I am ready to go.
That's what you call a segue from a professional, ladies and gentlemen.
And where can they reach you on Twitter?
They can always find me at The Rocha Says, ROCHA. See all the shows I'm hosting there. Super Animation Game Time, 1 p.m. on Geek and Sundry on their Twitch channel every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Walking Dead every Sunday. If this comes out before the season's over, you can watch our review show on Collider. And occasionally on Fridays, I am on Collider Movie Talk at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
And you, as always, you could reach us on Facebook at The Cine-Files, THECINE-FILES. That's The Cine-Files on Facebook. Please review us on iTunes. We've gotten a lot of great reviews from you lately. It's really great to hear from you.
Yes, thank you.
And we would love more praises because that's what makes us happy. That's the only pay we get for the show. And so you saying nice things about us is what keeps us going.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's it for this week. We will see you next time on The Cine-Files.